Columbus Day, the first novel in Craig Allison's Expeditionary Force series, is one of the top books I've read since I started reviewing things. But I've struggled with a lot of book twos. Some series seem to start strong and you get to the second book all excited and enthusiastic to dive back in, and it's like the author wasted all their creative juices and effort on book one, drained themselves dry, and had nothing left for book two. So, I went into SpecOps hoping for the best, but expecting the worst. The question is SpecOps a book two that finally delivers the goods, or does it fall into the same old trap? No love writing advice. Not the fluff. Alright, I'm going to keep this one short and sweaty, or whatever the phrase is. Busy week, not much time for script writing, but I've managed to throw something together. I usually write a script, sit on it for a few days, not literally, and then make some adjustments before recording. But I literally just smashed out this script this morning before sitting down to record. So hopefully this video isn't a burning plane crash, train crash, star carrier crash. Let's keep it on theme. Anyway, SpecOps Expeditionary Force Book 2. What's the story? After successfully freeing Earth of its alien overlords, Colonel Joe Bishop, accompanied by his crew and ancient AI companion Skippy, captains a stolen alien spacecraft, the Flying Dutchman, on a mission to help Skippy contact members of his own kind, an AI collective. They're essentially looking for a communication node left by the Elders, an ancient alien race who created Skippy, but naturally they run into a spot of bother. Many spots of bother. It'd be disappointing if they didn't. Oh, and because all the spacefaring races, including their enemies, don't know humans are in possession of a stolen spacecraft, not to mention a borderline godlike AI, the crew need to keep a low profile. They don't want any unwanted attention. I mean, wanting unwanted attention is a bit of a paradox. Look, I'm rambling already. Let's talk world building. Oh, we're off to a strong start. I give the world building in SpecOps a mind-blowing 4.5 out of 5. Now, I assume anyone who understands science or the military may be able to poke holes in the world building, but I'm an ignorant fool, so it all sounds legit to me. The sciencey explanations for how the tech works are believable enough to me, and the technical limitations placed on certain items, like the jump drives for example, add nice layers of tension to certain situations. The administrative, did I even... Why am I even trying to say administrative? The military and political systems are realistic, even among the alien races. There's a hierarchy and a culture of distrust, even between alien allies, which adds a nice dynamic and gives the Flying Dutchman crew a little more to work with in tough situations. In general, the world building in the series is top notch, and the wider universe feels deep and lived in. See what happens when you don't edit your scripts? There's just nonsense creeps in. My only complaint is, and this may be from a lack of information, but some world-building details, especially around the Elders, seem more plot convenient than natural. The Elders are an almost godlike race, and they left a bunch of stuff behind which younger races use to their advantage. You can touch their stuff, but don't touch it too hard, or Sentinels will appear and wipe you out. Then there's Skippy, who's almost godlike in his own way. So I understand the plot convenient reasons for the Elders essentially nicking off to another plane of existence while leaving behind a fully furnished universe. But I don't understand the logic behind some of their actions. Even Skippy's abilities seem a little too convenient. Anyway, maybe it will make sense later and my world building score will shift to a hard 5. It's almost there. Like I said, I am an ignorant fool. Let's talk characters, which I give another 4.5 out of 5. We're heading towards a top score here. SpecOps has a fairly large cast of characters within the Flying Dutchman crew, and each character who gets a good amount of page time has clear motivations. Some motivations are more compelling than others, and everyone on the ship, aside from Skippy maybe, are making huge sacrifices to be there, potentially sacrificing their lives. They all know they're likely never going home. Bishop himself is believably hesitant and incompetent in many cases. He's been thrust into a leadership position without adequate training or preparation, and he has to win over a crew that knows this. The conflict among the crew and the progression of those relationships is compelling and feels natural. Trust and camaraderie aren't instant, they're earned. Let's talk Skippy. As a character, he provides a lot of comic relief in what could be a dark story. We're all going into space to die. What have you been up to? Skippy's logic and raw computing power complement Bishop's creative human thinking, and it turns out they both need each other, and they both need the crew. Skippy also seems to have AI ADHD, which becomes a problem, or an annoyance for Bishop at least. So the super intelligent, godlike AI does have his shortcomings, and I'm sure they'll play a bigger role as the series progresses. Overall, most of the characters feel gritty and real. We get varying degrees of development for each character and the relationships between crew members. Even Skippy, an artificial intelligence, is capable of growth as a character and emotional growth. I will say, the large cast can get a little overwhelming, especially when characters pop up who don't get a lot of page time. It's not a monumental cast, it's not like War and Peace level, but I did have to stop a few times to try to remember who this person is. Skippy also gets tedious and repetitive at times. I know that's his personality, but the repetition is actually one of the biggest issues with this book. But I'll cover that in the writing section. For now, let's talk storytelling, which I give a 4 out of 5. It's great. Aside from the slow opening, it's a scavenger hunt situation. I was engaged from start to finish. And in the wider context, considering how tense the story gets, the slower opening makes sense. The conflict and tension ebb and flow nicely, and we do get those slice of military space life moments that help buffer the more intense sequences. Time skips are used well to push the plot forward. As the story does take place over several months, there's an underlying sense of mystery and doubt with not only the main mission, but also every submission, and the plot takes many twists and turns. The crew end up in several impossible situations, and they almost always come up with unexpected and creative solutions, even if Skippy is generally at the heart of those solutions. Look, the author does a great job of turning what appears to be more mundane missions into story-defining events. If you think the crew's safe, chances are they're as unsafe as they could possibly be. And even when they do succeed, there are rarely any clean wins. Each big success requires enormous sacrifice, and the crew is constantly playing fatal problem whack-a-mole. Take care of one issue, and another pops up to replace it. Overall, it's compelling, engaging storytelling. I will say, the story starts off a little rough. I mentioned the scavenger hunt situation, which is tedious, but like I said, it works within the framework of the plot. But that opening, a flash forward to a tense situation you know will end fine-ish before jumping back to explain how they got there. It's such an overdone storytelling mechanic, and it doesn't quite achieve what I think it's trying to achieve in this book. It's more of an eye-rolling moment than an, oh, they're gonna be okay moment. It just feels cheap. SpecOps also contains a lot of exposition, which kills the momentum in some places. At times, I was wondering, is this a story or a monologue? Bishop has been rambling for so long, I've forgotten where we even are. I feel lost in space. My next point is, and I'm on the fence with this one. So, the crew does use creative solutions to solve difficult problems. The problem is, as I mentioned, Skippy's near magical abilities are almost always a part of the solution. I know without a godlike AI in their corner, humans wouldn't stand a chance against the more advanced alien races, so I get why he's in the series, but if Skippy's still the crew's crutch in the next book, I'm probably going to struggle with the story. In book 2, and this is why it's not a deal breaker, Bishop and the crew do make huge contributions to each solution, most of them anyway, but it does get old when Bishop says, "Hey Skippy, I got this idea, can you do some magic AI stuff to make it work?" I'm sorry about that, that's a 1-star impression right there. Where was I? All right, now for the lowest score of the review. I give the writing in SpecOps a 3.5 out of 5. It's decent overall, simple prose with some grammatical issues, but the realistic dialogue and witty banter make up for it. I'm sure I would have noticed more issues if I'd read the text version, but basically, the prose does the job of telling the story, sometimes overtelling the story. There's a noticeable amount of repetition. Facts get repeated, known information gets summarized and then re-summarized, jokes get repeated, it gets old after a while. With that said, among the eye-rolling moments, there are plenty of insightful lines and laugh out loud moments. The writing score was almost a satisfactory 3, but the humour and banter elevate it just enough. Which brings us to my overall enjoyment, which I give a 4.5 out of 5. The repetition and rambling exposition wore me down a little, but even the rambling is entertaining for the most part. I read this book and I've got to give a shout out to the narrator, R.C. Bray. Brilliant delivery from start to finish. I was thoroughly entertained by the narration alone. That leaves us with an overall score of 4.2 out of 5, which is yes, it is a new high score. Spec Ops is the highest rated novel I've reviewed since implementing a rating system, which, look, it hasn't been that many books yet, and I have a feeling it won't stay in top position for long. Stay tuned. If you enjoyed this video, hit subscribe. If you didn't enjoy this video, hit subscribe anyway and hate watch my content. That's always fun.